it is time to jump back in the Machariel. I haven't been flying the ship in over 2 months now. I used to have tier 4 rigs installed, but I woke up one day and they were basically gone. Thankfully I got them back from the customer support, but ever since then I basically kept the good old tier 3 rigs, and I don't plan to change back into the tier 4 rigs anytime soon, perhaps when the price on the tier 4 rigs drops. So I was looking for ways to improve the Black Ops Macariel, and I still keep basically the Black Ops build for most of the time. The DPS is still pretty good. Now, the autocannons have been improved a little bit, because now I think I have maxed out cannon skills for this ship, so the stats do look very nice. I have a scrambler or triple webs or triple scramblers and one web when I am solo. For some reason I still use the faction drones for PvP, somehow they are still alive. And the rest of the low slots are still basically the same. There are some modules that I have to change, but so far I don't see any problems with them. The performance is very nice. Perhaps I should go and swap to full C types, but I don't know. I don't really have much of a problem with using the other green modules. Now I did change the engineering rigs into targeting rigs, so that the clocking device doesn't affect the lock-on speed. Now it reduces minus 50%. The scan resolution is reduced minus 50%. And the rigs give me about 65% if we include the penalty for having 3 rigs of the same type installed. But each rig gives me 30% extra scan resolution, which is nice, so technically my lock-on speed will not be affected that much by the clocking device, which is one of my goals that I had for this ship for a very long time, because the safety of the clocking device means that I don't really have to use warp core optimizers, so I can easily focus on the scan resolution. Now, sometimes when I'm solo, I like to use quad gyro stabilizers, and this build has a lot of DPS. With the tier 4 rigs I had about 17,000 DPS, including the Barrage Implant, which is level 33. The scan resolution is 402 with the 4 gyro stabilizers. Now let me quickly take a look at the default scan resolution of this ship, 143. Which of course is okay. So with the clocking device I still have about the same base scan resolution, which is nice. So one of the big issues with a clocking device has been solved. So let me go back and swap the clocking device in its place. Now I don't say that you should use a clocking device on a Macariel. Don't do this, because it's in most cases not going to work. I have this specialized build for a very specific purpose, and so far it does seem to be working just fine. 201 is the scan resolution with the clocking device, which is exactly 50% less, which is fine. So this Macariel doesn't have any warp core optimizers, so I have to be careful at the distance that I'm warping to. With the warp core optimizers you can easily just warp out when you kill a target, but in this video you will see that without stabs it is a little bit difficult to leave the grid if there are scramblers on you. But I don't think that it should be a big problem. I have the damage control, I have a lot of DPS, so I have enough defense to deal with anything that is small, and anything that can get close to this ship is probably going to get killed very fast, so it should not be a big problem in the longer run. Now the Macariel doesn't have a good tank. This is definitely not a tanky ship. The Macario is not known for its tank, it's not known for its capacitor, it's one of the worst capacitors out of any faction battleship out there. But the Macario is known for its speed and for its DPS. Now, I also was thinking about other battleships that might be able to fit a clocking device. Mostly battleships that have 6 or 7 low slots are a good candidate for having a clocking device installed, but most of them don't really work well. They don't feel basically the same as the Macario, because don't forget that the Macario is basically a oversized cruiser, so while you're flying the Macario, it doesn't feel like a Macario. It feels like a Cinnabal that is just a bit more massive than the other cruisers. The Nestor perhaps can do it just fine, because the Nestor is a Sister of Eve ship, so I can see it kind of work, but the Nestor lacks DPS, and the Nestor is basically a multi-purpose ship. The Vindicator can work. I can see this ship being working really well as a Black Ops battleship, but I feel like the sweet spot is on the Macario. Now again, don't use a clocking device, because I run this build in a very special environment basically, and it's very specific and very specialized for hunting in low sec. So let's go towards the first target. So we have been fleet warped to the planet, because that is going to be the best warping position, or yeah, position probably, because the next target is a sniper, or the first target is a sniper. Now I'm slowly starting to think that I have to improve the warp speed of the Macario, and I think this might be the moment where I actually start to level up a nanocore.
Warp drive active.
Now, as you all know, most of my cores are level 1. I only level up like 2 cores that I don't use, and I think I even recycled them, I forgot, but I only level up 2 nanocores. Most of them are on level 1. And the first target for today will be a Macario. Well, just in the good old days. Let's see how quickly I will lock on this ship. That was actually fairly fast. Macario scrambled and webbed, and our Barrage, our 2 Barrage Macariels did delete that faction cruiser, that faction battleship so quickly.
We're under attack.
Okay, let's warp out. Thankfully this ship was a sniper, so I don't have to worry about any scramblers. Usually the low sec storyline missions have a lot of ships that have scramblers or webs, in some cases up to 3, but on average 1 or 2, which can be a problem if you have to warp out very quickly, but so far that hasn't been a issue. Okay, let me align myself. Micro warp drive on, cloak engaged. Let's take a look at the Macario. 3.6 billion, a sniper Macario with a lot of tracking computers and a lot of target painters, and of course, most importantly, a lot of warp core optimizers. But we had a lot of points, so this Macario wasn't going anywhere. I have to say, this is a weird build, although my current build is a little bit weird as well, so yeah. Okay, let's go to the next target, awaiting the fleet warp command. Now the Macario is just like the Cinnabal, an excellent ship for a fleet. They are excellent for hit and run operations. This is basically the build that I'm currently rolling on this Macario. The other build that I like to use is the passive shield tank. Unfortunately, I did not have a lot of options. I didn't have a lot of, not options, but didn't have a lot of, I guess, chances to actually try it out, because when I swap to the tank build, for some reason there is no targets, but each time I go back to the DPS build, there is targets everywhere. So that's one of the reasons why you haven't seen the passive shield tank Macario in action. He still has a lot of DPS, but unfortunately I just didn't have a lot of opportunities to try it out. So the next target is a Hyperion. Now in this case I will not use the Barrage Implant because the Hyperion is a little bit far away. So in order to be able to do some damage, I will turn off the Barrage and just use the 3 gyro stabilizers that I have. And this Hyperion was destroyed. Let's warp out. Let's warp out before I get scrambled. Although I think that there is no ships with scramblers. Actually, there are ships with scramblers. That destroyer that you can see there has a scrambler, but
warp drive
they
active.
are busy with the. They're busy with my friend. And let's already warping out. Perhaps I picked the wrong asteroid belt to warp to. Was a pretty long warp. This mission was actually located oddly far away. Usually the mission is quite close, but this mission was actually quite far away. Okay, where should I align myself? Let's align myself towards the station. Cloak engaged. Let's take a look at the build. What kind of build is this? The best armor, the best active armor Battleship has a shield booster. Well, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. And my friend also warped right to the asteroid belt. Now we got scanned, and we have one, I think, Megathron in a mission. My friend swapped to the rattlesnake. I will keep the Macario because this is basically the only battleship that I have over here. We are warping to the planet for the best warping. Now in this case I will be a little bit faster because the Machariel has a faster warp speed than the rattlesnake. But the rattlesnake has an amazing tank, and in a lot of situations a good tank will win in a fight against a DPS build. That's based on my personal experience, and that's why I usually fit my ships for tank. And at the end of this video you will see what I'm talking about. I have a very good example of a very good tank build that I think will be very interesting.
Warp drive active.
Okay, we are in warp. Warp to drone hive investigation. Approach set at 0. Barrage implant is already prepared. Now I can warp first because I will definitely lock on the target before they can align. That's because of the targeting rigs, and there is the Megathron. They are not aligned. Excellent warping, 4 kilometers away from the ship. Webbed, scrambled, and Barrage has been engaged. For some reason I clicked on the drone. That was my little mistake. Did not want to click on the drone, and the Megathron was destroyed. That was very nice and very quick.
Warp drive active.
Now with this build with tier 4 rigs I have about, I think, 13 to 15,000 DPS. A little bit lower than the DPS with the tier 4 rigs, but it's not a big problem. it still has enough DPS for most targets. Okay, cloaked. And let's take a look at the kill. 950 million, which is pretty good. A sniper Megathron. And unfortunately, the expensive drone did not drop. Would be a pretty good catch if the drone dropped. But I guess can't catch a good loot. Can't find good loot every time, which is fine. I think I already have a decent amount of ISK, so loot is not going to be a problem for now. Of course, it's always nice to have good loot, but the loot fairy sometimes is a little bit weird, so it's fine. Okay, well, we are waiting for the warp for the next target. We have one Praxis 2. Now the Praxis 2 can be a good ship. I did fly the Praxis 2 a couple times and I kind of enjoyed it. It's definitely nothing special, but you know, it can be fitted to be good. And we are now warping to the mission. Approach set at 0. And there is the Praxis. Let's quickly approach. The Praxis is already into armor, looks like an armor tank. Well, that was quick. Now my last three Praxis targets, our last three Praxis targets were quite expensive. That ship can be valued quite a lot. Now, I'm not really sure why that's the case, but I guess they're classified as a faction battleship, so they can be expensive, I guess. It will be interesting to find out how expensive this ship was. I expect a pretty good price. But first, let me warp to the asteroid field to cloak, and then we can take a look at the kill. Not many players expect a Machariel to just cloak, which is a very... What kind of build is this? Again, a hybrid tank. Well, and no rigs, okay. Well, this is definitely not the highest value Praxis that I have seen, but still, it was a pretty good kill. However, not a good build. That build is bad, so don't replicate that Praxis build. Okay, we are going towards the next target. This one seems to be quite close. And we have a Tempest. The Tempest is an armor tank. Gyro stabilizers on. Barrage is also engaged. And well, I'm the primary target. Of course, I'm the primary target. Most of our targets make me the primary target, but I didn't take a lot of damage. And I got scrambled. This is what I was talking about. I have to find the ship that's scrambling me, which is that destroyer. I have a lot of... I have time to warp out, so it's nothing serious. But in some other situations it might be problematic, so keep that in mind. Okay.
Warp drive active.
The destroyer has been destroyed, and I can warp out and cloak. Let me align myself towards a point in space. Micro warp drive on and cloak engaged. $646 million. Well, this was a PvP build, very interesting. A DPS PvP build. Well, perhaps this Tempest was actually baiting in the mission. So I did say that near the end I will show you one example of a very good tank build. So we have a Raven Striker. Now the Raven Striker is known to have one of the worst siege modes that has been buffed, but in the end it doesn't really change much. It's still not going to apply a lot of damage to small things. And here I have my Daredevil. The Raven is shooting at the Daredevil for now, but it is speed tanking quite efficiently and no issues with the Daredevil so far. I orbit outside of the web range, so the Raven Striker's rapid missiles are not going to apply a lot of damage. However, my Revelation has some issues to go through the shield of that thing. I do about 7,000, 6,000 hits per cycle, which is not a lot, considering the fact that I usually do like 60,000 alphas in most cases. So I suspect that this ship has triple adaptives, one reactive, and dual shield boosters. Now this Daredevil is quite cheap, so I will keep the Daredevil on the grid for as long as needed. Now, of course, one thing to keep in mind, my Revelation is definitely not a DPS build, it's a full-on brick tank trunk build. So it will not have as much DPS as a DPS Dreadnought, but it still has about 10,000 DPS, which, you know, it's not a small number. And this Raven is also an active tank, so I believe that this ship will be heavily integrated, and perhaps this is a very expensive Raven because it looks like they have some pretty good stats on the shield. By the amount of damage that I am doing, I suspect that they have about 80 to 90% resistance on EM, which is the current primary damage type that I am doing on this Raven. However, slowly the Raven is going down. Now they are in low shield. The Daredevil seems to be slowly recovering shield. The capacitor on the Daredevil is getting low. Now that hit did go through the shield and it impacted the armor of the Raven. It did 25,000, which is okay for armor. The laser damage does greatly fall off when shooting at armors, but they have most damage against shields. Now the Raven is into hull. 1 or 2 more hits should be enough to destroy this battleship. However, as you can see, this is indeed one very tanky Raven. And the Raven has been destroyed. Okay, so I know a lot of you guys are curious to know what build the Raven has, so let me return the Daredevil around the orbit of the Revelation, and let's take a look at the Raven kill. 6.4 billion. So they did use rapid missiles, a full-on tank build, dual Nosferatus, dual webs, and well, that's definitely a pretty solid build. on that ship. Honestly a pretty solid build for a Raven. So a good tank will definitely beat high DPS. If this was my Macariel, my DPS Macariel, I'm fairly sure that I would not be able to go through the tank of this ship that easily, while the Raven with rapid missiles will have basically enough damage to go through my my shield and armor. So eventually I would have to warp out. So this is why I usually build my ships as tanks, with of course some exceptions. Ships that I use in a fleet will most likely be built for a specialized purpose, like the Machariel, which can cloak and has high DPS, which makes it perfect for a fleet purposed build. And so far I honestly really do enjoy flying the Machariel. It is one amazing ship. So I hope that you enjoyed this little Machariel roam, and I hope that you enjoyed the last fight with the Raven Striker. Was honestly, I was a little bit worried how it went, but thankfully we got the targets at the end, so it was a good fight. And hope that you guys enjoyed. I love you, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.